I've always believed in keeping to myself, respecting others, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life, like fishing on a quiet lake just before sunrise. For nearly 2 decades, that was my life. My home sat on the edge of Blackwood Lake, a small, serene body of water hidden away in a quiet, wooded community. I had a modest wooden boat ramp on my property, built with my own 2 hands 15 years ago, and every weekend I'd head out early with a thermos of coffee and a fishing rod in hand. It was my slice of peace in an otherwise hectic world. But all of that changed the day the HOA came knocking. The Homeowners Association wasn't always part of our neighborhood. For years, things ran fine without it. People minded their own business, fixed their roofs when they leaked, mowed their lawns without being told, and waved to each other when they passed. But that changed as more houses were built and new families moved in, mostly younger, city transplant types who wanted their picket fence dreams managed like a corporate boardroom. The HOA was their idea. At first, it seemed harmless enough. They sent out a proposal, held a couple of meetings in the community centre, promised to keep property values high and the streets clean. I didn't vote for it, but I didn't fight it either. Big mistake. 6 months later, I got my first official letter from them. It was printed on glossy paper, with the HOA's name and logo, some overly elegant bird silhouette stamped at the top. The letter politely informed me that my boat ramp, the one I'd built and used for 15 years, was a non-compliant structure and had to be removed within 30 days, or I'd face daily fines of $50. I remember staring at the letter for a long time, trying to understand how something that had existed for over a decade, long before the HOA itself, could suddenly be deemed illegal. I double-checked all my documentation. I had permits for the ramp, dated photographs, even the original surveyor's map showing the ramp as part of my property's access rights. I figured this had to be a mistake, so I went to the next HOA meeting. That's when I met Carl Whitmore. Carl was the newly elected HOA president. Picture a man who peaked in high school football and never quite moved past it. Khakis, polo shirt tucked in too tight, clipboard in hand, and a permanent smirk plastered across his face. He listened politely as I explained my situation, then proceeded to dismiss everything I said. "That ramp is unsightly," he said, flipping through a packet of printed-out photos of my property. "And it affects the aesthetic harmony of the lakefront. We're trying to establish a consistent community image." I pointed out that my ramp was there long before the HOA existed, and that they had no legal standing to demand its removal. Carl shrugged. "You're welcome to appeal the decision, but until then, the fines will continue." I walked out of that meeting angrier than I'd been in years. I wasn't about to be bullied off my own land by a group of clipboard dictators. So, I fought back legally at first. I hired a property attorney named Cheryl, who had dealt with aggressive HOAs before. She was tough, smart, and didn't take nonsense from anyone. We filed a formal response, backed by every bit of evidence. I had: permits, photos, property deeds, county ordinances. Cheryl even found a clause in the HOA charter that said existing structures were grandfathered in if they predated the HOA's formation. The HOA ignored it. They kept sending me fines, which grew into a stack of unpaid violations totaling over $3,000. Then they tried to place a lien on my house. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a ramp. This was personal. Turns out, Carl and a few other board members had been planning to build a community dock, conveniently located right where my property provided easy access to the water. They wanted exclusive rights to the lake for their fishing club, and my private ramp was getting in the way. They thought they could squeeze me out. Instead, I decided to burn their little fishing empire to the ground. The first step was information. I started digging into HOA bylaws, local ordinances, environmental codes, anything that might give me leverage. I also started talking to neighbors, to local officials, to anyone who might know something useful. That's when I learned that Carl's fishing club was operating without a license, had been stocking the lake with non-native fish species, and had built their new dock without proper environmental permits. Bingo. I filed formal complaints with the county's environmental office, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the state's zoning board. I backed them with photographs, witness statements, and documentation. I even caught a few members of the HOA dumping fish feed into the water, another violation. I also got creative. I installed motion-sensitive trail cameras along my shoreline legally, on my own property, and caught several members of the fishing club using my dock and ramp when I wasn't around. One camera even captured Carl tossing trash into the lake, which was more than enough for the county's conservation team to launch an inspection. Within weeks, things started unraveling for the HOA. County inspectors showed up unannounced and ordered an immediate halt to all activity at the new dock. The Department of Fish and Wildlife began an investigation into illegal stocking. The zoning board issued citations for unpermitted structures. Carl tried to play innocent, but the paper trail I'd gathered pointed straight to him. Meanwhile, Cheryl helped me file a counterclaim against the HOA for harassment and unlawful fines. We held a press conference in front of the county courthouse, complete with binders full of evidence and statements from other residents who had also been unfairly targeted. The local news even picked up the story after a tip from an anonymous source. Let's just say I know a guy at the paper. The headline read, "Local HOA accused of environmental violations, harassing resident." The online version went viral. Comments poured in from people who had been through similar experiences. Some called me a hero. Others offered legal advice. All shared their HOA horror stories. Carl was forced to step down as HOA president. The fishing club was shut down permanently. The new dock was dismantled. And the HOA, facing a lawsuit and public backlash, dropped all fines against me and issued a formal apology. But I wasn't done. Using my now famous status in the neighborhood, I rallied support to amend the HOA bylaws. We held a vote and passed new rules that protected existing property structures, limited the board's enforcement powers, and required transparency for all spending and decisions. A new board was elected, one that actually listened to residents. And me? I still launch my boat from my old wooden ramp every weekend, just like I always have. Only now, I do it with a smile, knowing that no one, not even the HOA, can take that away from me. Sometimes, standing your ground isn't just about protecting what's yours. It's about reminding people that respect, fairness, and common sense still matter. Because when they tried to threaten my boat access, I didn't just push back, I shut down their entire fishing season.